Howdy folks, in this video I'll be talking archetypes. And what we're thinking about when we say archetype is this like undercurrent or super system, whatever you feel. Do you like the idea of something running beneath the surface constantly or something containing the whole thing? Either perspective is great for archetypes because really what it is just a long-standing or recurrent image or type of something, a category that we can drop things into that helps us both understand and pattern how it's going on and what to expect, and also really start to understand the way it diverges or the way it makes it feel new and fresh, even though we've seen this type of character, this type of text 1,000 times before. Archetypal expressions are not inherently negative because it's doing the same thing over and over again. It's more about recognizing the tried and true, the inherent human experience of storytelling and character development, and then really exploring the nuance of it when we see it housed in that new frame. I like to think of it as archetypes are the bones, whereas as soon as you start manifesting the entire being on top of that, it doesn't matter that if you look at my skeleton you can say, oh yeah, that's a male, 34 years old, that kind of thing. Yes, cool, great, but I'm simply more than my skeleton. And so you have the archetype as that core structural thing that looks similar and permeates in very unexpected ways in space and time. And you've got a discussion of how it makes it fresh, makes it new. Ezra Pound said about poetry, and it's true about all storytelling, all writing, all art. Make it new. And the idea is that there's nothing new under the sun, gang. But that thing that is not new, that has been done before, can be made fresh, made nuanced, made specialized. And if you do a good enough job, you grip your audience so thoroughly, you engage them so vehemently, you grab their attention, and you don't notice that this is actually the same story as every other story ever told, right? And we'll get into that a little bit more when you get to the monomyth video, but I just wanted to give you a framework for archetypes, right? And the quickest way to think about archetypes is through, say, the characterization of like hero and villain. Right. Now, we'll talk the monomyth, we'll walk through the hero specifically, so I guess you can kind of think of this as the setup video for the monomyth vid. But the hero, depending on who you ask, has 12 to 24 specific steps of their journey that they must take. And a lot of them are shared across the various theories, and we'll get into one specifically, the Campbell monomyth. And you've already seen that referenced in the Chris Taylor that we read. And honestly, it's going to be super easy to walk through. You have a lot of materials on Blackboard, so check out that video after this one. But if you've got a concept of, say, an archetypal story, right? You can go from, I don't know, an archetypal story of the unrequited love story. So like love is expressed but not returned, right? We all have seen that story unfold. That's an archetypal story. We've been telling that story since we've been telling stories, or just after love was not returned, right? That's a very human experience, a very universal experience. You could also find that the Cinderella story is an archetypal story. There's something like, of all of the cultures that have ever existed that we know of, we've only found like 14 cultures in the history of human existence that don't tell some version of the Cinderella story. See, archetypes can be highly specific. And so if you're thinking about archetypal stories, that's what we have here, one of which would be the monomyth. So jump to that video in a bit. We also have archetypal imagery, right? So you have definitely seen one of your literature professors go on a rip about the symbolism of this or that. Symbols of caves represent this yonic womb, right? Or the color green always represents greed and envy, or nature and growth, right? You've all heard this stuff before. So those would be archetypal symbols or imagery, the things you expect to see, you expect to mean something in that way. You also have archetypal characters, which is really what we're going to get into in the next video. We're going to talk archetypal character as archetypal story. So you get a lot of crossover between this. The easiest way I've always found to get into archetypal characters is just thinking about the delineations between hero, villain, and anti-hero. It's so wonderful for this class that we're watching Star Wars because, and I think I might have mentioned this in another video, but actually in my Bible as literature course in my master's, right? We were walking through the idea of hero, villain, and anti-hero. And it was a little complex in the biblical story we were talking about, so we wanted a more casual, everyday user experience. And so my buddy Darren asked the prof, "Hey, could we walk through examples of hero, villain, and anti-hero in Star Wars?" And me and my boy Greg, who I'm hoping Greg will have some time so he can come in on one of these videos in a couple weeks. Great dude, you're gonna love him. But yeah, the idea is that we walked through hero, villain, anti-hero archetypes in Star Wars. So your basic framework is obviously Luke is the hero. Darth Vader is the villain. You see this clash, this fight, this setup where they're working against each other, right? Luke has to become heroic, and he eventually defeats the deed, the Death Star, right? And Vader is acting as this ominous, again, archetypal imagery, being he's dressed all in black. He has this visceral, primal, raging red lightsaber that is against the cool blue of Obi-Wan, who is also taking up heroic status, right? You'll find that Obi-Wan is more of the teacher archetype, the sage, the mentor, the wise, bearded individual. That's key, so crucial. That's Obi-Wan's role. And you have the anti-hero, and I'm so glad for this class because my epitomizing example of anti-hero is Han Solo. He's this heroic individual who constantly insists that he's not the hero, right? He has a code, he has an ethic, and he's doing the right thing more often than not. When it comes to good and evil, there he is. But also, he's a smuggler. He does dirt. At some point, he smuggled drugs. Like this is the anti-hero, that gritty hero that we find more frequently in our culture these days than in decades past. Although a lot of the westerns that inspire Star Wars are also classic anti-hero, where you might not even have a hero in the story, you only have an anti-hero, right? The idea of Solo sitting in that bar where he'll shoot Greedo, right? You have a lot of anti-heroes like drawing lines at I won't harm women and children, but if some dude wants to fight me, I'll kill him, right? Like that's the anti-hero space. Now, if you're interested in archetypal characters, you can go into a lot more detail. A lot of people have very specific archetypal character theories. Others are more pervasive. Like if you're looking into fairy tales, you're going to see the huntsman is an archetypal character. You will eventually bump into the Lothario, which was mentioned in the Taylor. This idea of this like this sexually not quite predatory but cad based individual who is really promiscuous and really just built into this thing of using people for sex, right? So you have this idea where sexuality is this accrual of things. And so yeah, you're gonna see archetypes spread out, and we have a lot of them in Star Wars. So jump on over to the Monomyth video if you're looking to explore next the hero's journey itself. What archetypally makes a hero, and what makes a hero's story. All right, gang, I'll catch you over there.